Hey, and welcome back to 996 The Howl. Not a clickbait title. This is crazy. Woke up yesterday. I read this with my coffee. It's heavy. It talks about a toxic workplace environment. So if you're not into that, it makes you sad. Probably not the video for you. If you're kind of second guessing whether this is true or not, there's a lot of corroborators with this user on Reddit. He's friends with one of the mods in real life on his beer league hockey team. Also in the Discord, someone has talked to him personally and could vouch for this user. It's a long story. I've never seen this on the Coyotes subreddit before, where someone makes up things, and apparently this guy was involved in getting Darcy Kemper, so I'm sure he would have bragged about it. So he hasn't, never really posted in the Reddit, so all the more reason why this is valid and true. I'm sure if I was the reason why the Coyotes got Kemper, I'd be shouting it from the hills, but that wasn't the case, and so I respect that of him. He doesn't really post in Reddit and clout or brag. It's a rough story. We'll get into it. Not sure if I'll read it word for word. Some of it is a bit personal. I decided to post this video because he's tried posting on bigger subreddits, but they keep taking it down. So I'm just trying to expose it to more people. Hopefully, if one of you or know someone who does blogs or is an actual journalist who wants to get some more details out of the story, because there's so much context in the story that it's led me to do some research and see what actually happened when Bill Armstrong got hired. And so let's get into it. He's a former salaried member of John Chayka's direct staff. He won't give his name. He's friends with one of the mods, Pro Joe. My entire life's dream had been to work in professional hockey. I was never that gifted at the actual sport. Nor did I ever really get a chance to play, but I was always good at math and feel that I developed the ability to read the game at a well above average level. This love for the game transpired into me trying to do anything I could to get a job in the game. In high school, I took a cafe job at Polar Ice in Chandler, Arizona, in hopes that it would allow me to develop connections with the hockey people and get closer to that end goal. So obviously this guy was very passionate about hockey, trying whatever he can to get his foot in the door. We'll move on here. Eventually, my academic career led me into grad school where I studied data science and data analytics for my master's. Through luck and a few connections that I made through driving the Zamboni at that ice rink, I managed to get an interview for an internship with John Chayka's head of analytics, Brad Rosen. It went well, I got the position, and I was thrilled. So we'll talk about Brad Rosen a bit later. For now, let's continue. The thing about pro sports, though, even though it's technically illegal, is that these internships are often unpaid. I was a student in grad school working on my master's. I had a full-time job driving the Zamboni for the local rink so that I could afford to live on my own. And now I had a full-time internship with John Chayka's analytics department without a cent to show for it. All I had was a promise that this would probably turn into a job. It was a dream. Obviously, it would be anyone's dream to work for a hockey team, especially someone who's born and raised in Phoenix and at the local NHL team. So typical weeks involve school from 8 to 2, ice rink work 2 to 11, and then Coyotes work from 11 to 5. I watched hundreds of hours of video a week, documented any particular player stats they wanted, and filed reports as needed. Sounds pretty normal. He didn't make a cent, though, due to an internship. He did most of the analysis on Kemper and also Grubauer, who was obviously never came to fruition with our club. But I do remember, I think around the time the Coyotes were looking at Antti Raanta, Grubauer was also an option at the time. So that makes sense as well. This goes on for a season. The last game comes and I find out at the end of the game that while my service was appreciated, it would be better if I found a job elsewhere. It just wasn't in the budget. Being a new college grad, I frantically search and eventually land a sweet job in Scottsdale. Great salary right out of the school, benefits, the whole 9 yards. I am upset at not getting the position that I worked for with the Coyotes, but accepted it as part of the real world. To make things worse, the new boss pulls me into the office on Thursday, the new boss at his new job, 3 days into his new job, and asks if I'm in for the long haul. Apparently other people in the role have left for better opportunities, and this Reddit user told his boss that he'd stick around for a few years, which you should do. I get a call that exact night. We want you to come work for the Coyotes. I know that we told you we didn't have a spot, but we just needed to wait until the new fiscal year before we gave you a formal offer. Now, I won't waste your time. They wanted to offer you $30K a year by talking about the $40K a year. What do you think? That's what the Coyotes hiring person said to this user. This was a dream come true, obviously. Yet at the same time, I was furious. They willingly let me get another job knowing that they were going to hire me a week later. Also, I won't say what we settled on for salary. I will say that entry-level data analyst jobs in Phoenix start at $70K, so another lowball. So even trying to act like bumping from $30K to $40K was doing me a favor. It was a not nice move. The next morning on Friday, I walked into the office of his new job and tells his manager that this is a new opportunity he must chase. So obviously it's an NHL team. Why not? Why wouldn't you want to work for them? And so the fun begins. I accept a start date for 2 weeks out. 2 days before I start this dream position, I get a call as I was walking into the gym. It was Jake Goldberg. I'll get into Jake Goldberg later as well. John Chayka's head of hockey operations. Hey, we have been evaluating the position we just offered you and feel it would be best served in Tucson, helping out the Roadrunners on a daily basis. Tucson Roadrunners are the minor league team for the Coyotes. We will pay for your relocation, but we need you down there for the regular season. I was sort of shocked and went immediately home. For starters, as I previously mentioned, he's going through some family issues, and it was kind of hard for him to just uproot and leave Phoenix to go to Tucson, but he does make that decision anyways. I found out later that they didn't mention the Tucson part immediately until they knew I had quit the other position. They figured that I would have asked for more salary if it involved literally moving for the following upcoming seasons. It was always a plan. I was intentionally not told of the plan. That led to a few hard phone calls to family, girlfriend, and close friends, but the dream, you gotta chase it. It is still the middle of the off season, so I'm doing all sorts of stuff for the home club up top. After all, my title was Arizona Coyotes and not Tucson Roadrunners. I won't go on much further, but here are some of the things I experienced over the course of the next season, and this is where things get toxic, pretty crazy, pretty old boys, school club stuff. So let's get into it. Tricked into drinking my first lunch with Chayka as everyone orders beers in front of me, but I'm the only one to get a beer, and then shamed for drinking on the clock the rest of the day, and I'm made fun of for being an alcoholic the rest of the preseason. Another one, consistently called a homer or a super fan sarcastically for being one of the only staff members from Phoenix who was actually a fan before being hired by the team. And as I get into all the personnel under John Chayka's tenure, these guys are all from Canada, so that makes sense too. He was paid absolutely low, but was told if I took any Zamboni shifts on off days to help support myself, that I would be fired, and that if I needed food, I would eat at team meals. That's pretty weird. Offered season tickets in my contract to sweeten the deal, not told that they were considered taxable income. For example, we will pay you $1,000 less, but you get these season tickets that cost $5,000 for you and your friends. My friends, obviously, the only game I got was the Dome retirement game. That tax hurt considering we were already paid really low. Consistently called, texted between midnight and 3 a.m. to have surprise reports ready for the following morning at 7 a.m. that were never once actually shared. Always a drunk hunch from someone. I'm not sure what that means in the brackets there. Not being told about morning meetings. I eventually found out this was on purpose, and then being absolutely berated afterwards for not being there so that I would stay late and do other work. Being asked to drive a single helmet from Tucson to Phoenix and then getting yelled at by someone else for being in Phoenix. Really terrible stuff happening here. Getting calls at random times on random nights asking me to run an analysis and then being absolutely shredded because I wasn't in front of my computer at that particular time. This particular time was Valentine's Day at 9 p.m. at night, asking about a potential American League trade while I was out for dinner with my girlfriend. I got yelled at while standing outside of the restaurant by Steve Sullivan, I'll get to him too, and told that if I wasn't in front of a computer in the next hour, I was fired. Crazy. Being told not to track hours and that overtime didn't apply in this type of business, and so it became a 70 to 80 hour work week. You have to be there before the coaches arrive at 7 a.m. and stay until after they leave at the end of the game. And games, usually start around 6 or 7 at night. They're usually gone by, 10 p.m. the latest. So that's like over 12-hour shifts. Being told that I need to be at every Tucson game, but if Tucson is on the road, I need to be at every Coyotes game. But then getting torn apart because I'm not in Tucson when the video coach forgets a flash drive. Being asked to tell players that they have been cut from rookie camp because people who should have done it were up to lunch, even though I was as entry level as it gets. And he's also a data analyst. Why is he cutting players from rookie camp? That's weird as well. Team needed an off-ice official for rookie scrimmage. I mentioned that I may know one. He doesn't work out. I get shredded by Jake Goldberg for not providing all of the officials for the whole scrimmage and have to pay people out of pocket to provide last-second ones myself. So he's paying for referees to ref the scrimmages. Getting invited to Vegas for an analytical conference with two higher-ups to hear about the new puck tracking tech and watch a game, and get promptly left behind on T-Mobile Concourse while they go and enjoy Vegas. You're getting to watch a Vegas game alone. That's pretty good. Get asked to recruit more interns to work insane hours under promises of jobs that I knew were completely false, being sent on business trips and then finding out that hockey operations had never actually paid the hotel. Wow. Being invited to a D-backs game, a Diamondbacks game, their baseball team in Arizona. Being invited to a D-backs game with the rest of the front office, but apparently only to serve as designated driver. Didn't find out until I bought a beer and got yelled at outside a suite. Any scout, player, etc. that needed a ride, it was on me and my dime. They cut a player and it was on me to drive his stuff to his hotel, to drive scouts, coaches home after games. I don't know why data analyst is doing that, chauffeur work. You are meant to be seen, not heard. Do your work, but try not to speak up. My roommate in Tucson was a beloved former player and scout. This one we gotta get into too. So my roommate, this guy's roommate his roommate in Tucson was a former player and a scout, a former player for the Roadrunners. He was constantly treated like garbage for not meeting the fake standards set by Jake Goldberg. He eventually left for a different franchise. Now, immediately when I read this, I'm like, I really hope this is not Craig Cunningham. And then in the comments, the moderator and this guy alluded to that it was Craig Cunningham. Craig Cunningham, I didn't research this prior, but I'm pretty sure he suffered a cardiac arrest during a Tucson Roadrunners game while he was playing hockey and had to have a leg amputated after that. And so they promoted him to a scout position, which I thought was great. But then hearing that they treated him like garbage, and then he did eventually leave the Coyotes organization, just tough to see. We all loved Craig Cunningham. It was a disaster what happened to him. And to hear this, it was really heartbreaking. I think from here, we'll keep going. There are things that I'm leaving out only to protect those still in the game that deserve protection and just sort of were just there, but what I laid out wasn't even half of the stuff that went wrong. John Chayka was a terrible judge of character who relied heavily on the likes of Jake Goldberg, Brad Rosen, Steve Sullivan, and Lindsey Hofford. John Chayka was a decent guy, but his judge of character was terrible, and he surrounded himself with bad people heads who were yes men in front of him but contradicted him and even talked smack behind his back. Not too shocking to see why we were still terrible in the draft, which will lead into other things to talk about later. It's normal in pro hockey, completely normal, but how these guys talk about players was revolting. We had a player who was genuinely hurt And the response was, if he doesn't want to play tonight, we can end his career here and now. At the end of the day, doctors were ignored, video staff were ignored, scouts were ignored. It was a John Chayka and Jake Goldberg show, and it led us to where we are today. I'd be happy to answer any questions. He just goes on. And then the final thing he says about Bill Armstrong, I've heard nothing but great things about how Bill Armstrong operates. He's a straight shooter who runs on his own conviction, but is willing to lean on his team. He is the opposite of what we've had. This guy is worth a chance, and definitely better than what we had. So, a couple of names thrown out in this long wall of text. Brad Rosen, Jake Goldberg, Lindsey Hofford, who's a man, not a woman. So these guys all got fired immediately when Bill Armstrong came. Now, when Bill Armstrong got hired, he immediately fired all these people. And being a fan on the outside, you don't hear about these things. So I was just thinking, okay, maybe he just fires people. But he said September 22nd that Bill Armstrong was committed to change the culture within the organization. And all these firings seem to line up. Brad Rosen was fired September 2020. Jake Goldberg fired September 2020. John Chayka left, quit, got fired in July 2020. Steve Sullivan and Scott Walker were kind of the only ones left. Scott Walker is still on the team. I couldn't really find much, but he was demoted from special assistant general manager to director of player personnel. So Scott Walker is the only one from this John Chayka regime and old ownership that's still with the team. Steve Sullivan lasted a little bit longer, and we all like Steve Sullivan. He was a former player, really didn't, signal anything was weird about him. Hearing that story about berating him on Valentine's Day is kind of bad, but he was fired abruptly this season in February 2021, and there was no reasoning behind it. It was a short and abrupt tweet and statement the Arizona Coyotes sent out, just we're moving on from Steve Sullivan and we're now replacing him, and they still haven't replaced him. When Bill Armstrong made all those firings, he also hired a whole group of people. He hired David Ludwig, director of hockey operations, December of 2020. He hired Daryl Plandowski, director of amateur scouting, October 2020. And Ryan DeCord, the special assistant to the general manager, in September 2020, but he resigned right after the season ended in May 2021, and they still haven't replaced that special assistant to the general manager position. I also want to bring up that Steve Sullivan was involved in that draft pick last year in 2020 with the player with the troubled history that was on a lot of teams don't draft list, and Plandowski and Bill Armstrong were not involved in the 2020 draft process. So it was Steve Sullivan that was in charge for that draft. Maybe that's why he was abruptly fired and the team just wanted moved on. So I just wanted to make this video. It's pretty important, pretty crazy to hear all this firsthand from someone who did work for the Coyotes. I was a huge John Chayka fan. But as stories like this come out, this old regime just really couldn't handle the team well, and it makes sense that the Bill Armstrong came in and just teared everything down in the back end first. In the front office, they made so many hirings, so many new people, a really good working culture they've started to build. There was that Athletic article last fall that came out discussing the bad work culture around the Coyotes, but the new regime under Bill Armstrong was barely even started when that article came out. So it could be referencing, the old regime of Jake Goldberg and those hockey operation guys and John Chayka. Apparently it was a lot of crap that Bill Armstrong came into and Alex Morello came into, who was hired in 2019. And since then, they've just been, reorganizing the whole organization, firing the CEO, hiring a new CEO, and just trying to just restructure this team to a good run hockey team. We'll see where it is. I'm not saying they're perfect right now. But to read all this, to see all the firings, Bill Armstrong fired literally all these people mentioned in this story. So that's good. He's made a lot of new hires. And now he's starting on the players. I'm not saying, all the players he's moved on from were terrible people, but it's obviously he wants to just start fresh and create a prominent NHL club that's respected across the league and isn't run like an old boys club or a Mickey Mouse club anymore. It's just run as a professional business who wants to win. And hopefully, after just 1 more year or 2 more years of rebuilding, it looks like he's starting to build an amazing foundation. They still have a great number of young players currently on the roster. And with all these draft picks, that just adds to the young talent. So hopefully it gets to a spot where they are a respectable NHL team who wins a lot and competes a lot. And none of this stuff ever happens anymore. So that's it for me. A bit of a different video, but thought it was important and just wanted to get this story out and expose it to as many people as possible. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support.